Welcome to the Lessons Learned for Vets podcast page. My name is Norris, and I created this show for you. I want this show to serve as a source of advice and guidance as you navigate the military transition path. I want you to know that you're not alone with what you're going through, and I want you to know that there is only one right way to transition out of the military, and that is the way that you choose to do it. We're just here to help smooth the path ahead of you and advise you about any bumps in the road that you might come across. So if you enjoy this video, please give us a like, subscribe to our page, and I encourage you to go to your favorite podcast provider and listen to the full episode of this show. You can also visit our website at www.ll4forvets.com. I promise you will get some great information. Well, welcome to the bonus question of the Lessons Learned for Vets podcast. I am here today with Connolly of RecruitMilitary.com, and we were discussing some of the most common lessons that I've been hearing kind of again and again throughout the last 80 episodes of the podcast. And so I have one last lesson for Lucas to talk to, and that is that you should not try to do your transition alone. What do you have to say to that?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, you're not transitioning alone. All right. For many of us, we have spouses and we have children that are transitioning with us. Okay. So whatever you're doing, include them in the thought process, include them in the decision-making process, hear their voices, because you're either going to listen to them now or you're going to listen to them complain about it later. And that's just a little advice from me to you. But when it comes to the transition process, we say don't go it alone. In all likelihood, you didn't get to where you are in your military career today by yourself. You didn't show up to basic training and say, hey, can I join? A recruiter was in your corner. Somebody down at your MEP station was in your corner. When you got to basic training, you had an advocate. And it's about advocacy. You had a drill sergeant. Maybe they yelled at you, maybe they were mean, but they wanted to see you be successful. When you got to that tech school, you had an instructor that wanted to see you be successful. When you got to your first unit, you had a squad leader, a section chief, a platoon sergeant, a petty officer, a master sergeant. They all wanted to see you be successful. Once you hit that transition point, suddenly those folks may be supportive emotionally, but they're disengaged from your success going forward. So you have to find an advocate. Where are you going to get that advocate? You're going to start down at your local TAPS office, get connected with a career counselor, go to the classes, allow them to help you be successful. Reach out to those 501c3 nonprofits. If you're paying money for somebody to help you with your resume, you've missed out on a whole world of folks that are out there ready to support you. All right. There are talent agencies, there are recruiting agencies, there's companies like mine that are looking to support you in your search for employment. When you get to your next location, there are VSOs, more than you can count, thousands of them nationwide, that are there to help you with getting oriented to your new environment if you haven't gone back to your home of record. So if you're sitting at your desk with a blank page in front of you, trying to figure out what to do next, you're doing it wrong. Start with the TAP office, reach out to those different agencies, talk to VSOs, talk to folks in the veteran community, and allow them to support you. Watch shows like this, where you get the lessons learned that are being passed on from folks that have been there before you. Find your advocacy. Get a mentor from Veterati or American Corporate Partners. Those folks are there to support you, and none of this costs you a penny. So if you're missing out on it, you're missing out on a lot of value. Absolutely do not try to do this alone. You can succeed with a team. The only thing you can do alone is fail.
I always, talk about the fact that I started this podcast to serve as like education and information. But what I hear from people again and again is that maybe they're not comfortable reaching out to a mentor. They're more introverted, or they're just not really comfortable going to an in-person networking event, and they see it as networking for introverts. And so they're getting that mentorship for introverts. So they're getting that mentorship, and they can do it in their car or as they're running or at the gym. And the other benefit, I think, is that they're like, oh, I'm not the only one feeling that way. And so just know that if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling stressed, there are others like you that are feeling the same way. And maybe they're like 10 steps ahead of you and they're willing to reach back their hand and say, hey, here's how I did it. This is the path that I chose. This is something you might want to try. But you'll never know if you don't reach out that hand and say, this is what I'm going through. Can you help me? So you've got to be willing.
You need to stretch beyond your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is where you maintain. Growth happens when you go beyond your comfort zone into places that you've never been, whether it's physically, spiritually, emotionally, professionally. You've got to open up your aperture and start reaching out, because if you want to stay the way you are, if you want to stay in the role you're in, if you want to stay in the career you're in right now, if you want to make the same amount of money next year that you made this year, stay in your comfort zone. If you're ready to transition to something new, you've got to get outside the boundaries that you've put in front of yourself. You've got to leap beyond your own limitations and stretch out. And there are a lot of folks out there in that growth space that are ready to support you.
Well, that is great advice, and I appreciate you sharing it with us today. Thank you, Lucas.
Thanks, Lori, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for watching the video today. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Did you leave us a comment? Have you listened to the full episode of the podcast on your favorite podcast provider? We sure would appreciate it if you would do all of these things to support us today.